Hi, I'm June. Today I want to talk about equipment, specifically wedges. I'm inspired because Adam got me a new wedge that I've been wanting, and I practiced with it yesterday and I'm in love. It's a great wedge. It's the most beautiful wedge I've ever had. So I can't wait to show it to you. I want to talk a little bit about wedges. There's so much to talk about, but over time I will, and you connect the dots with the golf swing and form so that it can save you time and energy and money. I'm not one of those instructors where I am all about the swing and totally against equipment. I think technology is great when used in a way that connects with your form. It can be that extra edge, it can be the icing on the cake, it can be the cherry on top. Basically with wedges, a lot of golfers don't like to use them, especially when they are high lofted, like a 58 or a 60 or even higher. I prefer 62-degree wedge. And a lot of it is the swing itself. So as much as I talk about equipment and how I like them, you're gonna like them more if you have good form. There can be this disconnect between instructors saying the form is what it's all about and equipment isn't important. And then there could be where a club fitter could say, you know what, I can fix your game with a good club fitting and completely disregard the golf swing. So I want to be that middleman, the middle woman, to why the form is important and then why technology can be that extra edge. Or really bad equipment that really does not suit you. The shaft is too strong. Let's say you're a woman starting off playing golf and you have a men's set of clubs or regular or stiff shaft. So those kind of things. And also if you have clubs from so long ago and the technology has improved and it can be a little more and some a lot more forgiving, yeah, it's good to get a new set of clubs, even if you're new. There were times as an instructor where I played Titleist, like my whole bag was Titleist because I just completely believed in the brand. Other than my putter, I had an Odyssey, and I still have an Odyssey putter. But at that time, I was loving it. It just, to this day too, I'm not part of Titleist, but to this day, man, that company is solid. And as I played it, a lot of my students were like, what kind of clubs do you play? And they wanted to just trust my guidance. And I'm like, I love Titleist. I've seen other clubs that I've tried personally, and then I've also seen people hit them and how a lot of them wear out in their own special way. So, like, I'm not going to name any company names, but certain companies, the club will come off the hosel often. And there'd be times where I'd be at the range, it's really funny, and somebody would go, oh, I gotta go get my club head because it flung out of their shaft, and everybody has to stop, and they would go and get it. And on their way back, I go, is it a fill in the blank? I'm not gonna say the company name. And he's like, yeah, how'd you know? And I just knew. And there were times where I would have students, they're kind of connected to a certain brand, and when they chose that one, I just kind of cringed a little bit, but at the same time, I don't want to say anything. I mean, everybody has their favorite brand at times. But I would sort of go, you know, it can wear out in a certain way quickly. And sure enough, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like 2 of my irons fell apart. And then as a company, they took forever replacing it if they did. And so I just know the whole customer service side of it as well as the equipment itself. So I'm not saying that Titleist or I play pings right now, that that's not going to happen, but it's so infrequent. It's not as common as like certain other brands. At some point, I ended up falling in love with a ping driver, and there's a whole story on that. But I ended up not only getting a ping driver, but getting a whole set of irons. And I'm not represented by Ping or sponsored by them. I just purchased it. And over time, I ended up just purchasing my own clubs so I can just talk freely about equipment. But I really think companies should do this. When it comes to sponsoring somebody, that there is no connection other than they see that person representing it for free and they just like give them a product or, you know, support their endeavor. I think that's the way it should be. It's kind of like I would wear my Under Armour tank top all the time and I'd be like, you know what, instead of having somebody go, well, and have like somebody representing it and then they have to wear it, but then like represent some people that just wear it and then just, you know, send them a gift or something. I think that's the way it should be because sometimes when you're tied to a company, then you're representing something and you can't ever really go try something else. Like, what if there's something better for you? And that's what I discovered with pings. It was awesome. And I'm not saying Ping is better than Titleist. It was just that season with what I got was great. But both companies, and I'm not represented by any company. I buy my own equipment and I could easily get it for free, but I just get my own stuff and I can talk freely about it. But Titleist and Ping, what I love about it is that they're classic. I'm not saying this is going to happen moving forward, but what I've seen thus far is they tend to make the season better in the next season. They take what style of clubs they had, that technology, and then they just kind of tweak it and make it better. So it's just this classic design that just keeps getting better. And Ping seems to be that way too. Yeah, there's going to be some dips down the road in some seasons where they're trying to make that leap to the next technology. So there may be that area, that season, but in general, where other companies, it seems like, not all, I'm just saying like a lot of other companies can be gimmicky, like the golf swing tips that you hear. And it promises you so much, but it just is this new gimmicky thing. So there's just a lot going on. And I like things that are sleek and classic, but it's fine-tuned to a better equipment. That's what I like, not check out this new thing and it looks completely different from the season before. And every season it just looks completely different. And it's like, again, a quick tip. It's like you keep trying something completely different, nothing is connecting, and you're not fine-tuning. So that's what I love about Titleist and Pings. I had a brief video about equipment and that I was going to talk about it, and there was a guy that had talked about specific specs in one of the comments. He's like, if you do these specific specs, this is like the holy grail kind of thing for a golfer. And he's like, trust me. And you know what? I I see what's going on in the way that he's presenting it, because he really cares. I think it's awesome, and that's his information and knowledge that he got out of the game. And as I was trying to explain that, yeah, but the most important thing, like he's saying the most important thing is that lie angle and this and this and this, and he had specific specs. And I was like, well, the most important thing is getting a form, a swing, a decent swing, a foundational, fundamental swing. And then all that stuff can be the side effect of it. But as we continued, he's like, no, it's this equipment, trust me, ask any tour pro. And then that explains it. Because I've always said, as a touring pro, as you get more and more fine-tuned, the more specifics of other things come into play. So specs and custom fitting can, if you have the right fitter too. It's not all fitters, club fitters are created equal. But yeah, like those specifics can help a touring pro with that extra edge. But I'm talking on behalf of 99% of golfers, because I've had specific custom fitting from a PGA club fitter, and he was awesome. But he's on tour with the pros. He's on the van fitting them. But whenever he came into town, I'm like, okay, I want to get fit by him, because no one else could compare. And I'd rather get stock clubs because they're balanced. And oh my gosh, like if you have the right swing and you get a standard club, I encourage all my students now, I'm like, get standard clubs. Just get, basic fitting to what length, what lie angle, but to not have something compensate the swing that you have, because you're going to have your own natural draw and your own power fade. And so you don't need a club to compensate that. So a lot of clubs, you can tweak it to be more draw biased, because most of the golfers slice the ball or they have a weak fade. And so they're draw biased. Some clubs in the past used to have draw biased clubs. You look at a hybrid and it was just turned in before any kind of setting, any kind of custom fitting, just because majority of the people slice the ball or hit a weak fade. But I teach the proper draw, which is right to left, not anything that goes left, not a pull or a pull hook or anything like that. It's a high draw or a high power fade. And then after that, you can do low shots from there. But when you can do it yourself, you want more of a standard fitting. So a lot of times, club fitters that are stuck in their ways of what majority of the golfers do and what they need to help compensate, I had to tell them, hey, can you keep it more standard? And they just couldn't understand that. So there's that disconnect from instruction, if you're teaching the right stuff, to club fitting. And I'm just trying to find that middle ground where I'm like, no, I'm not saying that club fitting is bad or equipment is bad. I'm just saying when you're going down the right path and people are learning the right things, you don't have to compensate so much. Because if you have a student that I'm teaching that's hitting a high draw or learning to, or a power fade, and then you tweak it so that it compensates what most golfers do, then when they start hitting a high draw, they're going to hit a hook, or vice versa. So that's why I like things more standard. And there were a few club fitters that understood that and respected that, because I brought the business to them. I'm like, you know what? These are the clubs I do recommend, but you don't have to do it. And they would go, I want to go with what you recommend. And then some of them, this is where we got to all drop our ego. To get to what I'm teaching, things are going to sound certain and be like, this is what it is, but it's because it's tried and true, not because of an ego trip. And so if people can understand each other and try, go, why are you asking me? Okay, let's talk this through. Then there could be this logical path that's clear. Companies should get super excited about this, because you would think that for me to encourage people to do the right form and things like that, you would think golf equipment companies would not like me talking about this, because a lot of companies think short term, and I want to encourage long term. I've sold more clubs than you can imagine for both Titleist and Ping, just simply because I really like the clubs, but I didn't push it on anybody. I just said, if there's any club that you like or brand or whatever, go for it. But a lot of my students asked me, what do you like personally? And I would explain it. And then they would go get it. So I always feel like, man, I know it seems long term. It's like, no, let's give the consumers the quick fix kind of thing where this is going to cure everything. Because what happens is when it doesn't, a lot of golfers quit. They give up. Where I would have a beginner and I would encourage them to just get a few clubs, and I'm going to have a beginner series about like how to start and get clubs, but they would just get a few clubs that I would recommend, and then they get the right form and they end up hitting better shots, and then they end up upgrading in the future or adding more clubs to their bag, and they become like so into the game that when new technology does come and then they go try it, and I say, if you do add 10 or 15 yards trying a new technology, go right ahead, you know? And that happens as you progress. And so I feel like more people will get equipment more often, or they will stay in the game throughout their life if they can perform. And so instead of looking at it short term and trying to sell gimmicky things and trying to resolve the issue, I feel like teaching pros and equipment can be a good blend. Okay, let's go back to wedges. My wedge. So Cleveland wedges were wedges that I used to play, and I thought I would never switch from Cleveland. But one time I tried Titleist Vokey wedges a long time ago, and I just fell in love. And I would sometimes go back to try other wedges and Cleveland wedges, but I just kept going back to Vokey wedges. It's just, again, Vokey wedges, it just seems like it just keeps getting better and more fine-tuned and not getting all gimmicky and stuff. So wedges do that too. Other companies are like, oh, here's a new style, and it's like completely different. And so it's not as fine-tuned, it feels like, with Vokey wedges. Like, these are awesome. So this is a wedge that I've been wanting. It's SM10, and Adam gifted it to me, and you can see the logo, junesgolf.com. I thought that was really cool. And I love the finish. It comes with 3 different finishes. I don't know the name of this finish, but I love it. Because normally I get a black finish for my 62 degree, simply because I normally have 2 or 3 wedges. And so if I have like a 56 and a 52, I like to have 62 as a different color so that I don't have to constantly look at the number. Get it? And so instead of looking at, oh, is this a 62 or a 56 or a 52, I just grab it because it's black. And then this is, and I didn't clean it off, it was raining yesterday, and it's dried grass from, there we go, yesterday. It's SM8, so it's been a while since I've gotten wedges. The reason to replace wedges usually isn't just for the new style, but the grooves. So the grooves here are so fresh, and it really helps. It feels like when you start to get more feel as you play, it feels like it kind of grips the golf ball. Where the other one, the grooves get worn out, which also can play really well. So I love worn out grooves also. It's weird. It feels like you can spin it differently with it. When it has grooves, it's a different spin. So I like both. Tiger Woods, I heard, changes his wedge, I think every month, I think. It's very often, more often than the average person, and more often than a lot of the pros. Why not? He gets free clubs. It's like you can replace it every week if you want to, if you're Tiger Woods. But also, the grooves are important in getting the right spin and feel. I want to show you again, though. Isn't it beautiful? It's just absolutely beautiful. And I love my SM8, and it's an M grind. This is an M grind. I really like the M grind. There are other grinds, but I like it how it goes with my swing. And the swing that I teach, most of my students, I'm like, go get an M grind, because it is so neutral. Other grinds, it feels like if you have a steep swing, then it kind of helps you out in some way. And then if you are playing in different types of grass, you can get certain types of grinds. But for me, I feel like the M grind works everywhere. Different types of grass, tight lies, in the rough, in the bunker. And I feel like it works with the swing. Like if you have a good fundamental neutral swing, it's like M grind's great, because you don't need a club to compensate your angle of attack. Titleist was so good to me. Because I sold so many clubs, they had invited me to the tour van and things like that. But see, like, I like how that worked. It was more of a reward and less of, okay, you teach a lot, why don't you represent our clubs and we will provide you with everything. It was the other way around. Like, I liked Titleist. I sold a lot of Titleist clubs, and then I had the Titleist experience, and then at one point I met Bob Vokey. What I like about him is he's truly a craftsman. He really is an artist. He understands the arc of the golf swing, and the equipment he's building blends well with it. So it's not like he has this specific design in his mind disregarding the swing. It blends well with what I say about the golf swing is, if you do the right swing, then you can let the club work on its own. You allow it to shine. So if you do the right swing and you do the right things, the loft and the technology of the club can do its work. So it's just this beautiful blend. Vokey wedges make sense to me, and I can feel it and I can see it. And when I get students where they hated wedges, especially like they can't even imagine hitting a 62 that I have, but even a 60 or a 58, but over time they end up getting them and they end up loving them because they now have a form that blends well with the technology, and then it can work. So all the time I hear, but the other day, this is fresh on my mind, but I have a student that, you know, didn't like wedges and couldn't get the golf ball up in the air, any of her irons either, but especially a wedge. She would scull it or chunk it or whatever. And over time, she can hit these nice soft shots, flop shots, pitch shots, chip shots. And she would play with people, and two separate situations, two separate people in rounds. She would hit a pitch shot and just goes high and lands softly on the green. And they would go, here, give me that wedge. Let me see, what kind of wedge did you get? you know, is this a special wedge? And she's like, no, it's just a stock wedge. And both times people are like, what? And it's in the form. And then you can let the technology do what it's supposed to do. What I also liked was the authenticity of Bob Vokey, because there was a bunch of teaching pros around, and he was talking about his wedges, and one of the guys were called in the bunker to hit his shots. And the guy obviously had played golf most of his life, like he was a good golfer, and he hit some sand shots. And I think one went in or hit the pin, and then the other ones were like this close. And I remember watching going, yeah, but that's a steep angle of attack. I mean, yeah, it may be working for him, but that's not going to work for a lot of people. And a lot of times, like if you're somewhat of a natural and then you practice a lot, you can make things work. But for the majority, I'm like, yeah, that's more of a putting all your weight on your left side and a steep angle of attack. That's just kind of not recommended from what I saw. And Mr. Vokey goes, you know, you hit some good shots right there, but I wouldn't recommend that swing for my wedges. And I knew exactly what he was talking about. Even if there was a good result at that moment, he and I separately saw the longevity of that motion doesn't coincide with the design of the club face, the club grind, and the design. It was a pleasant surprise to see that, because that's not common. Not a lot of people can see that. And the blending of the equipment and form. I could go on and on and on just about wedges alone, but we'll just stop right here and I will continue on in the future. But I hope this can answer some questions or motivate you to see golf in a different light, to blend equipment and form, and to not get stuck in one thing. Like, don't get stuck only in the equipment world, because equipments aren't going to save you. You need to do a lot of it yourself and then meet it halfway. And today I totally got geeky about golf, but I love it. I love it, and I know that there are some golfers out there. This isn't for everyone, this video especially. Some videos, they are for everyone outside of golf, but this one is like really totally getting geeked out, which is a side of me that is there. And I'll have more talks like this in the future for golfers that are seeking something new, something fresh, something that's like, you know what, I've tried everything and feel lost. And I can kind of clarify things more and get you on the right path. All right, take care and always have fun. Peace.